didn't realize my mouth was that big.
What? About?
Receivership going on.
The teachers and the policemen took it totally wrong. And they started talking, and the policemen were ready to walk out the door because they thought they were gonna lose all their buybacks. But there's no, Bellamy said, what? And the mayor said, no, BS, and it was all misunderstood. Are we ready?
It's a pretty big misunderstanding.
This meeting of the Charter and Rules Committee will come to session. Present is myself, Chair Joe McGivern. To my right, Councilor Linda Vacan. To my left, our City President, Councilor Kevin Jourdain. Councilor McGee is out of town on business. Councilor Lisi is expected, but she's going to be a little bit late. In the audience, Councilor Lopez, Councilor Leahy, Councilor Roman, and Councilor Graney. We have an agenda of 8 items. To our members of the audience here, we are being televised and videotaped, and under the open meeting laws, that should be announced at each meeting. Item number 1.
I make a motion, we remove that from the table for discussion.
Second.
A motion has made and second to remove item number 1 from the table for the purpose of discussion. Introduced by Councilor Roman, received by the City Council on January 5th of this year. It's in order that the City Council amend that all councilors are to be in the chambers by 6:45 p.m., that the City Council meeting will begin promptly at 7 p.m. On the motion to remove from the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Under discussion.
I'll just briefly say, obviously, we want the meeting starting on time. I think we need to, I don't know if we already have a rule that says the meeting's supposed to start at 7. But what is implicit to that is that we actually start on 7, and it's a point well taken. I will say I do allow some level of flexibility to let people sort of talk a little bit amongst themselves first, and to there are people coming in at the last minute and to settle themselves. So sometimes it's 7:05 or 7:10, but we absolutely should strive to kick it off at 7 o'clock and get here 10 or 15 minutes early, ideally. Get committee reports signed, things of that nature, and get it going. I think this is more of an enforcement issue than it is like we need a second rule to say what the first rule says, because actually the rule, like I said, already is what number 1 says. So it's just a matter of, I suppose I could be really militant about it and just start gaveling in at 7, but I think what you will see if people are not totally disciplined is you will see 10 or 11 people in the chairs. You'll see people scampering around the room, signing committee reports. There you have it. That's really my only commentary on that.
Councilor Roman?
Mr. Chair, I'm completely in agreement, and I thank the president for that, and I agree. I file this as more of an enforcement reminder, and I would be satisfied that my order be, I would make the recommendation, again, if it pleases the committee, that this order be complied with.
Councilor Graney?
Yeah, the 6:45 p.m. Starting date for all the people to be milling around talking is great, as long as we start the meeting at 7. If we have a quorum, I just think we should start it at 7. And once again, my order, the second one, which will be under discussion, is the same thing. Basically, but or I could address my order, or I could address this. My problem with it is that the people at home, especially the senior citizens, they depend upon, a 7 o'clock start. A lot of them don't want to stay up too late to watch it. They do want to watch our meetings, and it's very important that we start on time so that those folks at home will have an opportunity to see the entire meeting. Sometimes we go very late. With the early start, if we're more efficient, it would give more people a chance to view what we're doing here. And I'm getting requests from that particular group. And of course, the other argument is these meetings are taped, and they could see it at another time. But these senior citizens who are and I count myself one of them, they're aware that the meetings start on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, and they are aware that they're supposed to start at 7 o'clock, and I think we should make every effort to accommodate them. Thank you.
If I could just comment real quickly, Councilor Bacon? No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. My only comment would be, I think if our excellent president calls the meeting to order when there's a quorum present sharply at 7, that those that are coming in late will come in on time. Thank you.
And I'll take it one step further. You can't blame the president on this. If everybody wants the president's ear at 5 or 7. There is a good 15, 20-minute period, if the president's here, most important, 20 minutes early, where anyone that needs to bring something to the attention of the president, that should be done, including any discussion with the city solicitor, any discussion with the chairs. And that's the most difficult part I believe, about starting the meeting on time. But I think Councilor Roman and Councilor Graney, you brought this not just to this committee's attention, but I think you're asking us to bring it to the full city council's attention and ask for everybody's cooperation. Is that?
My intent is yes, Mr. Chairman.
And we will certainly discuss it at the next meeting. Obviously, this will be reported out. We'll have a conversation. We'll have a reminder. I'm happy to start it more at 7. The only thing it's not a defense, but I will just say in a defense to some counselors is, what's it now been, 3 years since we went to the 7 o'clock meeting? I mean, for years, we were always 7:30. So I do note that we did push the meeting up a half an hour. And by the way, that vote was 8-7. So there were some people that really didn't want the meeting at 7. It did pass, and we haven't changed it since. But that is a struggle for some to get down here. They liked having, but what I will say on the other side of it is, it's good I like starting it actually at 7. And I was in the stay at 7:30 camp. I actually like having the meeting now at 7 because I think we got a little more energy going at 7 to 7:30 than we do 10 to 10:30, on the other end, where we start losing our vibrancy, and we start getting more tired after a long day. So I think it's good that we moved it up a half an hour, but for some, I know they do struggle to get here on time.
Any further discussion?
Make a motion to be complied with?
Second.
Motion made second that the order has been complied with, and we will report that back to the next full city council meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 2.
Make a motion to remove that from the table for discussion?
Second.
Motion made second to remove from the table an order introduced by Councilor Graney that the regular meetings of the Holyoke City Council shall start at 7 p.m. sharp. The meeting shall be chaired by the council president or the senior member of the city council present. The motion to receive and to remove from the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilor Graney, you just noted that this is very similar to item number 1, with a slight difference. As everyone knows, the senior member, in the absence of a president, would always start the meeting. The charter, that is a charter, actual.
It's in the current rules already.
In
by
the
way.
rules, but it actually dates back to the charter, I believe.
Yeah.
But either way, it's, the important thing is what the charter says is the senior member only starts the meeting. And then it's up to the city council to decide who's going to take over in absence of the president. Now, if the president's on his way, that's a different story. As long as we know, I think, a 15-minute grace period, even for Kevin, is pretty good.
Yeah, yep.
But I think this is also important to note, in addition to Councilor Romans, that we all should be aware of that the meeting can start and should start, as promptly as possible. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Councilor Graney?
Yeah, just, then, as far as I'm concerned, the order's been complied with then.
And I'll remind people of that rule as well, because that already is in the current rules.
Any further discussion?
Motion's been complied with.
On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 3, introduced by Councilor Greenie.
Motion to remove that from the table.
Second?
In order that the late filed orders of the Holyoke City Council shall be limited to 10 items. Motion was to receive and take off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Councilor Greenie.
Yeah, the reason I file this is we get a lot of late file orders, and late file orders are supposed to be really emergency situations. And I think we should put a cap on it only because the president has the discretion, if there are 15 orders there, he can always discriminate as to which are the most important 10 to take up at that meeting, which are the most important ones to be discussed at that meeting, and the other 5 can be put off to the following meeting if they're not important. Anything that's crucial or something that's important, I can understand. Certainly, we should address those at the meeting, but I think that 15, sometimes 20 late file orders, I think that's a bit much, and I think that we should put a cap on it. And that's the rationale for me filing this order.
Councilor Roman.
Yes, I was in favor of Councilor Greeny's order, and for me, being a new councilor, I would actually ask that this also includes any from the chief executive, from the mayor's office. A lot of times as a new councilor, I find that there's late file orders that are deemed important that aren't on our jacket, that don't allow me enough proper time to study or research the matter, and I feel super rushed as a new councilor coming in and voting on a lot of items that are deemed as emergency. I feel that if the city council president was to allow us to push that off to the next meeting to truly grasp whether it's an emergency, to speak with the mayor or not, to see if they're an emergency item. I feel a lot of times my first 11 months in office, I felt rushed to vote on a lot of things that might have been able to wait 2 weeks. Some couldn't. I understand and respect that. But I feel there's a lot of late file items that just don't allow me enough time to do my due diligence as a councilor. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. I'll go even a step further on that one. I think there have been some late filed orders that are filed late for the express purpose of having them not appear printed on the agenda. And I think that is contradictory to the spirit of the open meeting law, even though it may technically be covered under it because it is being read to the public. And so I think it is being abused, and I would like to see it limited even further. So I'm fully supportive of this, and I think it's a proper discretion of the president of the council.
Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, I support this rule change. I think 10s is a fine limit. Here's the other piece. We can always suspend the rules if something earth-shattering came up, but I think this sets a good general rule, right? That 10's a cap. I agree. When you start getting into 15, 20, 25 late files, we haven't had that in a while, thank goodness, but I think the point is, yeah, 10 seems plenty generous. And you're right, I think what you get is, at the end, the other ones that bother me is when you get the ones like the school department. You know, major bonds, gotta be approved tonight, you know? I mean, $6 million, you know, and you got the superintendent at the rail. You know, sorry, I just had to get this in today. I mean, they've been working on it for 10 months, but if we don't pass this tonight, you know, blah, 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 blah. I mean, most of those things are probably not controversial, but if they even remotely, you even took, I mean, some due diligence before you agreed to spend $6 million on something, or $5 million, or what have you. I mean, it was like the science lab for Dean. I think we approved that in a matter of days, if not the same day. Things like that, and they come in late file. Big transactions like that should not be coming in like that. I know they get pressed for certain grant deadlines and stuff, but they've got to be anticipating these things as much as they can in advance. So 10 seems like a reasonable, unless there's really something extraordinary. So I make a motion to adopt.
Councilor Lopez.
I'm just looking at the city clerk and Ryan, especially, let's say, for example, 5 councilors would like to file a late file order like half hour before, and you only have 3 spaces or 3 opening for the 10 orders. How are you going to handle that? I think that you need to be a little bit further on that, have a
Do you want the president to have discretion to say this is
Absolutely.
not an emergency?
Yes, absolutely, because
So
I mean,
maybe we should add that
otherwise,
to the rule.
we'll be here all night.
Let me grab my rule book.
So if you can,
So
I don't know how you're gonna. I'm done.
That's a good point.
Well, it's just that I don't want to be here until 1 o'clock at night. I would like to see 0.
Yeah, there was a day when
I
we started
agree.
at 7:30 and got done at
Yes,
9:30.
absolutely. Yeah, I would like to see 0. 0 late for order.
Well, Kevin's reading. Counselor Bacon?
That's a different order, though. I was going to offer an amendment to this order that gave the president discretion to determine,
It's
not Which-
an emergency.
yes.
Yeah.
If the rule doesn't,
While
Yeah.
we're catching up, I mean, this has been discussed for ages, and I think under Counselor Jordane's order, was the last time we modified the rules, and it was a good step where we don't have final discussion on a late file unless 2/3 of the council agrees, and I think that helped out. One of the ones that have always bothered, I think, most of us, is the financial orders that come in late. There's rarely a reason, or good reason for that, because although they come under the chairman of the finance who's over the chairman of the finance at the time, they're introduced by the mayor and the auditor. You know, they have to be signed off and by both before the appropriations or grants can come to us. And that should never be late. You know, those should always be known, you know, with very few exceptions. Councilor Jordan.
Right. So, councilors, what we would be seeking to amend here is Rule 44. Rule 44 currently reads, "An order, request, or resolution or other form of business should only be presented to the city council other than provided for above," which is the normal procedure it references. "If, in the opinion of the maker of the order, request, or resolution, or other form of business, the matter requires the urgent and immediate attention of the council. In the case of such a late file order, request, resolution, or other form of business hereafter ordered, the maker shall indicate on the order that it should be considered as a late file order, and upon suspension of the necessary rules to consider such an order, shall, upon reading of the order, present a brief explanation of the need to consider the order on the night rather than waiting to consider it as a regular agenda item." So let me tell you, that never happens, right? No one is giving a brief explanation why this is coming in late file.
Yeah.
Right? We could start enforcing that. That would be a good start. The rule continues, "Orders filed after the deadline presented in Rule 44, Paragraph 1, which is the normal process, and not specifically designated as a late file for consideration at the next upcoming city council meeting, shall not be considered at that council meeting, but will instead be added to the agenda of the next regularly scheduled meeting." Okay, and so that we adopted that rule change May 15th, 2012. So, what we're seeing here is we could amend the paragraph to state, one, the number shall not exceed 10, and we could put it in, it shall be left to the discretion of the council president if in fact the matter requires the urgent and immediate attention of the council. Does that
Yeah.
sound fair?
That will be fine.
Okay.
Councilor Bacon?
I thought I recalled that we had amended that rule, that if it was a late file, it only went to committee.
We have to suspend the rules in order to take final action on it, correct?
But otherwise, it just goes to committee.
Correct.
Okay. So I would offer an amendment
Okay.
to this order that stipulates that the late file orders shall be limited to 10, and the president shall have the discretion to determine which ones are of an urgent nature, using the same language of the rule.
Okay. I'll second that.
Motion, amendment made and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Just under discussion.
Sure.
I know we briefly mentioned a minute ago about communications. Would it make more sense to handle communications separately because we can't control them? Not necessarily receive them, but, not allow communication to be part of the 10. Let the 10 be city councilors' orders up to 10.
So communications automatically go on the next agenda?
Yes, unless
Yeah.
a city clerk or someone brings it to your attention that this is an emergency,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
think-
or if it's an obvious one that we want to get done.
Yeah, that's,
Councilor McGivern?
Counselor Grady?
Under that language, then the president could ask for the body to go ahead and deal with that particular order anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem, I would think.
I think, I agree. I have no problem with that, Counselor Graney. What I'm thinking is, we have to have a lot of this done before the meeting, or it just becomes the same time-consuming
Yep.
at the end of the meeting, if it's on the president's shoulders of everything that's there. You know, this should be decided before the meeting, or, as it goes along, but
Well, any way we can streamline it will be
Yeah.
good as far as I'm concerned.
But I think we're on the right, I think we're all on the same page. It's just a matter of
right.
figuring out how to do it and asking for a lot of cooperation by everyone, including communications. Any further discussion on the amendment as Councilor Bacon proposed, late filed orders number not to exceed 10 with the city council president's discretion on emergency or urgency of the order itself? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So moved.
Moved on the original order as amended. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. That will motion, that will be received by the full city council at our next regularly scheduled meeting, recommending adoption with the amendment. Item number 4, introduced by Councilor McGee.
Motion to take up?
Motion made second to receive and take up, in order that the one-year appointment of the Holyoke City Council Administrative Assistant be changed to a 2-year appointment. I did have a chance, as I stated at the beginning, Councilor McGee is out of state, actually, on work, out of town on work. He apologizes for not being able to make it, and he did say if it's the wish of the committee and Councilor is present, he has no problem if we take this up for discussion. If we wish to hold it for another meeting, that he's fine with that, too. Is there any discussion?
Well, we could have did we take it off the table?
We took it off the table.
Okay, so briefly under discussion?
yes.
All right. So this would require a charter change, because this is in the charter.
Oh, it's a
as
charter.
as a one, so this is not a rule, this is a charter. It specifically states that the administrative assistant has a 1-year term. So that's the current rule. I'm not sure what the case is to make it a 2-year term. Basically, if the person's doing a good job, we basically re-put them in for another term. I'd have to hear a pretty convincing reason why to change the charter to make this a 2-year term.
Councilor Warman.
No, you answered my question.
Okay, Councilor Warman.
Yes, I would agree with the council president's sentiments. On me as a new councilor, I don't feel we should change the charter for this until there's a mechanism for us to review, again, not specifically individually Ryan, but any individual who's in this position, unless there's a mechanism for us to review the strengths of any job, just as with any employer, to see if that employee is doing good, then for me, I would feel comfortable going forward with a charter change to then say, all right, this administrative assistant, whomever they may be, is compliant or meeting the requirements of their position or duty, but I don't feel we have that mechanism in place. And as such, I don't feel then that we should change the rule, because currently as it stands, we vote based on the individual that is before us. So I think that we should just leave it as is, and I would urge against the passage of this charter change.
Councilor Lopez.
Is it possible to find out what all the cities are doing with their administrator assistant?
could,
Just to
sure.
just to find out. I'm not saying that I'm gonna vote to change it. I want to be open and clear about that. But I would like to find out what Westfield, Chicopee, and all the cities are doing, and maybe there will be other ideas. I don't know. Just an idea.
Councilor Bacon.
Just briefly, I just think it's a high hurdle to go through a charter change for something unless we had a compelling reason to do it, and I don't really see it.
Any further discussion?
So I make a motion, we want to just table this maybe for more research?
I think it's a good idea, and we'll find out Councilor Lopez's question and
Do a
see what
comparison.
Councilor McGee thinks.
Second.
Motion made second to table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Excuse me.
And then the maker can be here next time.
Item number 5, introduced by Councilor Roman. Order that the City Council amend its rules to make the joint committee of the City Council and School Committee a permanent standing committee.
Motion to take up?
Second.
Motion made second to receive and take up under discussion. Councilor Roman.
Yes, thank you so much, colleagues, and I thank the council president and you all for creating this upon, I believe it's 2012, same time as well. As the joint chairman of the city council and school committee, I can tell you there's been some hurdles, one of which I'm very grateful to Brenna McGee Murphy, our city clerk, for actually having it listed on our agenda now and our minutes. So the items that are coming in and out of these committees are critically important. I believe that with under the receivership, and speaking to what Councilor Jordan mentioned earlier with regards to the school system and committee coming into us a lot of the times last minute, I can tell you that in this committee, we have tons of conversations, and I know I wasn't at our last city council meeting. I'll be reporting back to the council. For example, this Wednesday, they're having a community conversation on building a possible new school, which I am privileged to bring back to you all to participate in. I believe by making this committee a permanent standing committee, it gives it that validity and respect. Some of the conversations that we've had within the two are almost seen as adversarial roles, even though this is a subcommittee that is not permanent standing committee. And with all due respect to previous chairmen, the committee has not met consistently enough. I believe by making it a permanent standing committee, this will then make the committee meet more, meet often, meet regularly, and I would actually offer a suggestion or amendment to my own order that the language be listed that the chairman be the city council and that the vice chairman be the appointed representative of the school committee. Reason why I say this is I have run into many obstacles setting meeting dates this year because of the co-chairman on the school committee side and scheduling. I believe it's a streamlined process if it's like every other committee of the city council where the chairman is on the city council side and we're able to just meet regularly. So with that, I will yield the floor.
Councilor Bacon.
I have a technical question regarding the nature of the committee, and that is because it is made up of members of two different bodies, I'm struggling to understand how we could make it a permanent standing committee because the committee wouldn't really be able to vote to make recommendations to the city council. I mean, in my understanding of how the committees are formed. So that's really a question that I have, but it relates to the standing of the committee. So if others here know the answer to that,
I think that's a very good question. Kevin and I actually had a discussion after our last, or before our last meeting, I think, about this. It's, when a resolution comes out, which most of the time with this meeting, there are resolutions, I think it's simpler that we're just talking about resolutions and agreement or disagreement. But when there's something that is more final, we need recommendations only from city councilors, with due respect, from school committee members, but with an asterisk next to their names. So that complicates the mathematical formula of what is a majority, what is, in terms of the recommendation. So I think it's a good question. I don't know if we know the answer. Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, a couple things in our rules that are implicated here. We're looking at rules 32 and 33. 33 is what empowers the council to have created this rule. The council created the rule under Rule 32, which basically states that the city council may establish additional special committees as the city council deems appropriate. So we did that, and we did that by a majority vote. And Rule 31 says that they'll consist of 5 members unless a different number was specifically ordered, and we did. So we have a membership of 3 of us and 3 of them. And no report shall be received of any committee unless agreed to in committee actually assembled, and all reports shall be in writing. The problem that I have, not so much with making it a permanent committee, I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I think, though, for the purposes of voting on things that the council will consider, I would say 2 of the 3 council appointments would have to vote. If the vote went 2-1, for example, because now I guess technically the committee's 6 members, so quorum is 4. So let's just say arguendo, the vote was 5 people show up and the vote is 3 school committee members yes and 2 city council members no, and that comes back as a recommendation to us, that's not okay. We're going to have to tighten up the rule on this to either, one, make this, we could go with the 3 city council reps to it, but we have to make clear that it's only the city councilors voting that could actually have a vote here. Because with all due respect, those school committee people, they have 0 say as to any voting on this city council for anything. I mean, they just haven't been elected to this body. So I don't want to recognize their votes. We could say symbolically, the committee report was such and such and such and such, but it's really 2 committees, and they're each meeting. So what we should probably say is, it's the city council committee on schools or on education. That also serves as the ad hoc representation of the joint committee. So really, if we did create a permanent standing committee on education or on school department relations, or however we would name this, that 3-person committee would be voting back, on orders that were referred to it. And that just mechanically would get us by some of these other rule issues about the problem that I would see otherwise, because otherwise you're recognizing school committee members that have no vote, cannot serve on committees that represent us, and 2, just all this type of procedural stuff. So I think if we clean that up and let's work on some common language here for maybe the next meeting, and then have something more definite in how we would word all of this, I think you could do this.
Councilor Graney?
Yeah, certainly, it's a valuable vehicle that we could use as counselors and as the school committee could use to open up these lines of communication, which have somewhat been absolutely silenced over the years. We have an open line of communication with the school committee members and the city council. I think it's a wonderful thing if we could work out the language. My problem was the same thing, that we have 3 counselors who could bring it before the body, but it would have to be a majority of those counselors present to make that vote to do so. And of course, the members of the school committee would have to buy into those rules as well. So we'd have to make sure that they bought into those rules as well.
And that works the other way too, right? How our 3 couldn't outvote their 2 and put it on the school committee agenda either.
Exactly.
I mean, that works both ways.
Having served on both bodies, that's
You
absolutely true.
You know exactly right. We have no vote on the school committee.
Councilor Bacon?
I like the idea of separating out the 2 roles and clarifying it, because I could just envision articles in the newspaper summarizing 4 of 6 people voted on it, but
Yeah.
they wouldn't take it up in the city council because only 2 didn't agree. So I just think that could be just fraught with misunderstanding. And so if we make it a committee of 3, 2 of 3, it's all clear, and I think it achieves your goal as well.
Councilor Roman?
And I think the committee, and this is exactly why I brought it before you, because I have been dealing with this same headache over the last 4 meetings that we have held in exactly that same fashion. Or there was one meeting where Councilor Sullivan couldn't attend, so I was stuck in that limbo and looking at whether Councilor LeBron Martinez and I were going to vote together on an issue or against, and all of the agenda items before the joint committee are all city council run. We have gotten nothing from the school committee side before our committee, so unless it's generated from this body, it doesn't appear before the committee. So I completely agree. I would agree with the committee's recommendation. I would recommend that we table this, allow us to come up with that joint language, allow us to further proceed, and I'm just thankful that going into year 2 of my 2-year term and serving as chairman, that we can then hopefully have this settled before the first of the year. So thank you.
Just real quick, I think it's a good point, and I'm not too sure, but, is the receivership, and, I know the school committee is still working and still involved, but is it the receivership and the status of the school committee maybe making this a little bit difficult or making them look at it different? Because there is no real control over appropriations at the moment. There is no real say over, which is our big thing, is money, buildings, and, what's going on. That has an impact on money. And I think, because the school committee doesn't vote on the budget at the moment, we don't vote on the budget at the moment, which is sad, but I think that might be playing into it. But I think the time right now is to set it up and to get things ready and rolling for the future when our receiver is gone home. Any further discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
To table.
All
Second.
those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved.
Motion to take up item 6.
Second.
Motion made second to remove from the table item 6 that is introduced by a guy, former counselor known as Gordon Alexander.
Who still has the jacket.
Yes.
That still has a red jacket at home. Gordon, if you're listening, or that the city council adopt the rule in accordance with the legal opinion that has already been provided clarifying the need for the meaning of a signature on a committee report. On the motion to open up for discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. I did not, and I apologize, I meant to call Gordon over the weekend, but I didn't have a chance to talk to him. I know we've had a lot of discussion about that. Linda and I were trying to figure out what that opinion was, but it goes back a while. But I think everybody's familiar with our process of a committee report jacket being signed in the confusion of whether it's only supposed to be those in favor who voted out, or those of the majority that voted it out.
Right.
Or is it, even though you're not part of the majority, you're still voting it out, and certainly you can sign it. So I think, the common sense, I think Kevin might have a good way to put this, but Councilor Jordan.
Right. Councilman McGivern's right. There's that issue about the significance of your vote. In fact, this was kind of raised the other night. We had the marijuana one in front of us. Councilor Valentin had signed the committee report. Then she sort of thought about it and said, well, I'm really not in favor of the committee recommendation, but yada, yada. But the point is there's a second issue implicated by this order, which is there was an opinion which is contrary, in my opinion, that the law department had come out with at one point, which also questioned the need for a majority of the members to actually sign off on a committee report. And under Robert's rules, which is also in our rules, we're governed by Robert's rules, and anything that's not specifically articulated in the one of 65 current rules that we have is defaults to Robert's rules. And in Robert's rules, there is a rule that states that any committee that meets must have a majority report that comes out of it, because that committee report is actually what the people vote on. So if the majority of the committee is not in support of what actually happened in the committee, you've got to have that as well. So that's been falling not in a specific enumerated rule, but is happening under Robert's rules, and that is in Robert's rules. So I've been enforcing it. If a committee jacket comes in and only 2 people sign the jacket, it doesn't come before the body. It stays in committee until 3 of the 5 members of that committee say, that's what we're doing. And so, so you got a couple issues at play in this order. And so there you have it. So, what has also occurred, you will see too, is necessarily voting on something out of the committee that says, for example, the 3 of us vote to send XYZ to the council. If 2 days before XYZ is to go to the council, Councilor McGivern or me or Linda, whomever, says, you know what, I don't think that's not my opinion on the committee report. I do not agree with that. I either didn't like the final wording or whatever. That has to have the majority, and this is in the rules, in the Roberts rules, this has to have the majority support of that committee to come before as a final report of the committee on this issue. So it's not just, we're voting to say, yes, that's what we're doing, but you also got to have a report. There's a 2-step process of the committee that says this committee to full council, just like as if this were in Congress, right? The Rules Committee of the House sends it up. If there's lacking of majority support of the committee of that, it cannot make it to the main body of Congress, and that's the same here. And so that rule has been the case. Now, we could spell that out more in the rules, we could just, that's where it lies sort of right now under Roberts. As far as people, the other piece of it really doesn't concern me so much one way or the other, which is, I sign something that's a committee report. I myself, my Kevin policy is I don't sign committee reports I'm opposed to. That's me, okay? I have, however, done it because what's happened is I do it out of sense of fair play, and I do it say, but usually what we'll do as a committee report is we say, no recommendation, right? We've had to do that sometimes in financial transfers in finance, where really all of us are all over the map. There's no real majority for something or against something. We'll say, we send it up to the council for its final vote, and that's what we sign off on. Like basically, no recommendation of approval or denial, and then we wait for a motion from the majority of the floor to amend the committee report recommendation. Some counselors say, well, I just sign them all. I don't care, and then I vote however I want. And there's that school of thought too. So that's up to left to each individual.
Question.
So anyways, those are the 2 points I wanted to make on this.
Councilor Greenie.
Could we simplify this issue simply by saying or reading into the record that the counselor that signs the report, we all sign the report, and the counselors be named as a vote in the affirmative or in the negative? So then if myself and Counselor Roman disagreed as counselors, and Leahy and Diosdado said, yeah, it would be Counselor Roman, no, Counselor Greenie, no, Counselor Leahy, yes, Counselor Lopez, yes, Counselor Vacan, yes, 3-2, the committee. We read into the record what the subcommittee votes are, that would solve the problem.
Well, the committee right now has a recommendation. They'll say, blah, blah, blah issue. The committee voted to approve, and then it has the 5 lines of your names. Theoretically, you're signing if you support that,
Well,
and you don't sign if you don't support that.
well, what I'm saying is, if the committee, you don't hide behind anything, your vote on your feeling on that particular issue is there for the public to see. What I'm saying is, you voted negative on this issue. The committee voted yes to go ahead and bring it before the full board, but individual counselors have the right to dissent.
True.
And I think that should be read into as part of the record, and I think that would solve this issue.
Okay. So put it sort of like you'd say so-and-so, instead of it just being empty for your name, it would say Graney opposed.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Councilor Bacon.
I would just say, I think it's up to each counselor, if they're on the dissenting side of an issue, to choose whichever method they prefer to express that. I mean, you can do it by not signing the jacket. You could sign the jacket and say opposition. But on rare occasion, there have been things voted in committee where there was further information gained between the committee meeting and the city council meeting, which could legitimately cause a person who voted one way in committee to change their mind in a significant way on a significant matter at the time of the city council meeting. And so I think, as our rules and different procedures are used in many ways in the political realm, this is just another one. And I think as counselors, we do have discretion. And as on many other matters, there's any number of opinions on the matter. But I'm personally comfortable with the way we're doing it.
Councilor Lopez.
I was thinking the same line that Councilor Greenie was thinking, that if you stand the line and just put yes and no, it's up to the councilor to sign it and then move on. Simple.
I think we've heard, if I could, all this possible scenarios, maybe one that we haven't heard, but that happens and causes this rule to be sometimes misunderstood or misused, or just not used correctly, I shouldn't say misused. To me, nothing comes out of committee, whether it's a recommendation to adopt, a recommendation not to adopt, without a majority of the committee present voting on it. So there has to be a majority that night. Now, tonight, a majority is 2. That causes a problem when we get to the floor next Tuesday, because 2 is not 3. And that's always been a difficult part of it. I think Councilor Graney's idea is good for the scenarios where 5 people discussed it, the vote's 3-2. If I'm in the minority, I don't have a problem. I want the report to come out. So if one of the majority is not present at the council, my signature should be available to get the report out. That's what I've always said. Linda's got a good point is, hey, wait a minute, something happened, I would not have voted this way. You can't change the vote of what happened at the committee level, but you can certainly vote to put it back into committee, or look it, I'm not signing it because I want it to go back to committee because I just found this out. And I think in most cases, the full city council would agree with that, for further discussion, especially legitimate cases. It's just very difficult, I believe, on the president when, when you got 2 signatures and we all know it's ready for vote and there's no more work to be done at the committee level. We just got to make sure we can get it out properly. So.
Well, I think the motion in that case, Mr. Chairman, is that we have a motion to remove it from committee. I mean, that would be the way to get it out. That requires 2/3 vote, but, there is a mechanism to do that. The 2/3 could go around the committee and pull it out.
My orders will never come out of committee.
Now, there are rules that say it must come out within, I better not touch that one tonight. What's the pleasure?
I'm going to make a motion, this has just been complied with.
It actually asks for an order. Why don't we say,
I mean, we can just put that on the jackets now.
Yeah.
The support and opposed. So,
how about leave to withdraw,
Okay.
but with the recommendation that all members sign the jacket accordingly how they voted? And the president will know if a majority
Right.
is in favor of the recommendation.
yes,
Does that make sense?
that there's got to be at least 3 in favor.
Yep.
Okay? All right. And that's what we'll do.
Second.
Okay. So the motion is to give the order leave to withdraw, but to recommend to the city council in the future that even those who are not of the majority to sign the jacket indicating that they are of the minority vote for the recommendation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving on.
Motion to remove 7 from the table.
Motion made
Second.
second to receive item 7 removed from the table. It's by Councilor Leahy. That the Holyoke City Council's official resolution to include the name of the councilor who is the lead author of the resolution. Under discussion?
Yeah,
Councilor
thank you.
Leahy.
So what was that dated?
Councilor Leahy, no one has asked that question yet tonight, but I will be happy to answer your question. This was dated May 19th, 2015. The original order is in that red jacket, which could be somewhere on Lincoln Street, is it? I'm not sure.
I would give it to. So I'm very honored and privileged to be here at the first meeting of this wonderful committee.
Annual meeting.
7:05 on the 14th of November 2016. This brings me great pleasure, and I'm sure it does you guys as well. The reason I filed this order is just because I've seen many other proclamations throughout this fine Commonwealth and also throughout the country as well. And I've noted in most of the proclamations that I've seen, it's generally the maker and sometimes well, I'll give you a short little quick list. But the thing is, in my calculations, I think I've only filed 8 proclamations in the 17 years I've been here. So I'm not one to sit there and write up a lot of proclamations, so it's having my name on it, it's not that big of a deal. However, the older that I get and the more that I go into different places where I've been the author of a proclamation or whatnot, it is nice to see your name, and it's nice for whoever you've given that proclamation to remember who it was given to, from. So I just did some very small due diligence. New York, it has the name of the counselor who filed it. It also has the district they're from, the date, and the council president. Pennsylvania, council president, the city councilor, and up to 6 other councilors who want to join onto it. Atlanta, it's the name of the city councilor, obviously the date, the city council president, and it gives up to any city councilor that wants to join on to it. I guess it must be computerized where they erase the lines. which I think that's a great idea because, you know, I might want to sign on to Diosdato's, but Kevin might not want to sign on to it. Linda might want to sign on to it. You know what I mean? So the computer generated would allow the lines and the name.
They have smaller city councils, Jim.
Some of them you'd be surprised.
I'm only kidding. I'm
but,
only kidding.
Well, in another year, we'll be a little smaller, right?
Yeah, so by the time this, our next meeting will be much smaller. You know, some of them, most of them don't even have the clerks. It's usually generally the city councilor. Other ones have city councilor, the council president, which, you know, is actually an honor because the person is getting voted in, so I don't mind that. But I just think that the name of the city councilor itself should be put on there. Like I said before, I'm not an author of many proclamations. I just haven't done that, and I only do it generally for specific reasons. But I bring this before you guys on this historic night for your thoughts.
Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I think it makes sense. I think when we get these situations where it's like, let's give Mother Teresa an award and proclamation for being the most wonderful woman on earth, right? These like totally, everybody is jumping out of their chair to say, I support and co-sponsor, right? So what we do in that situation is whoever I guess the lucky soul is that filed us to bring Mother Teresa to our attention, I suppose we'll say, well, we'll have a line, so as to save expense, maybe we'll wait till this book of proclamations is expired, but at the reprinting, I don't see why we can't make a new line, it makes perfect sense. And that we put sponsor, James Leahy, and all of the other counselors, or we're gonna have a section where it has all the little check boxes. I'm game for whatever, you know? And
Personally, that's my recommendation. It's
Right.
not so much to have,
just that those boxes, the only thing I would say on the name thing is, those are only gonna be good for 2 years.
Yeah.
Because, and those proclamations probably, a box of those probably lasts longer than 2 years, Jim.
well, we don't have to get a box. We could do computerized now, from what my understanding. These are
Okay.
just printing them out. You just get a thicker stock.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a bad idea either, yeah.
It's cheaper that way.
If we could probably make a template set and have the administrative assistant to them, yeah, why not? And then you could just type it in. And, you know, that would also solve our calligraphy problem.
Right.
It's
Because
really-
right now, I think Ryan's got his mom handwriting them at this point.
Which is nice.
Which is great, she's got good cursive, but God bless her. But I'm just saying is, we could put it in a font
Right.
right on the computer, you know, end of story. I mean, we are in a day and age that computers are, you know, pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah, I mean, I'll forward this to you because it's obviously too small for you guys to read, but it just has the actual verbiage of the proclamation, then just has the lines for the, for each city councilor. And, you know,
What I'd like to also get is those, like, you see the House and the
Yeah.
Rep and the House have like the nice fold over thing instead of the picture frames. I mean,
picture frames are nice, but it's not,
yeah, I think the other way is kind of nicer. The
agree.
mayor uses those,
everyone does.
everybody uses them. I think we should probably go to that and we pay for them out of the flower
For the
fund
money
or-
we're gonna be saving.
Exactly.
Offset it.
We have a box of seals, you know, and, yeah, so this is a good idea. I don't see why we can't tweak
And hopefully I
this.
don't get voted off the council. Next year,
Get
maybe
the
I'll get the
delete
first
button,
one.
get the delete button.
They'll say, oh, thanks, Jim Leahy, come on and get your first proclamation.
We'll give you the first proclamation.
Please don't.
Councilor Roman?
I agree with Councilor Leahy's order. I wasn't on the council at the time. I was just a citizen at the time, so I completely agree with this order. And again, just going off what Councilor Jordan said, all of the mayoral proclamations right now are all computerized. So I think it's the way to go forward. And the font we're looking for is diploma, and it's out there. And I agree that we say, yep, diploma font is what a lot of proclamations and standards are using for the nice calligraphy-looking font. And I think that it's the wave of the future, so I rise in support of this order.
Thank you. I'm
The
glad.
other thing, just to kind of continue, oh, go ahead, Linda, did you want to say?
Do we need an amendment to put the other names, to make it available for the other names also?
Yeah, like everybody that voted in favor and,
If that's okay with the maker?
Of course, absolutely. The way I look at it, and I love our city clerk, and I love whoever the city clerk is in the future, but, you know, we are the city council.
Right.
You know, and I think it should be authorized through the president.
Yeah.
You know, and quite frankly, the majority of the ones I looked up, it's the city councilor, the president, and whoever the other,
Counselors were
Diosdado,
there
Linda,
joined.
that makes perfect
and
sense,
Dave,
yeah.
because it's
So
our.
that I would just offer that amendment.
Yeah, and I also think we should go beyond proclamations. Why can't we start naming days after people? I mean,
Oh, like
you
the-
show me anywhere in the charter, anywhere in the ordinances or anywhere in the rules, the mayor has now created Joe Banana Day, right? So I can name any day in Holyoke is officially from now till the end of time, Diosdado Lopez Day. Every, I don't know, pick your birthday, whatever it is.
Or February 14th, for instance.
Exactly, right? You know, it's Valentine's Day, it's other days. But it's a great day, right? Spread the love. And
We start singing Kumbaya, I'm out of here.
we have to hold hands first.
I'm sorry,
But,
are you going to second my amendment?
what was your amendment? Oh, yeah, seconded your
Amendment
amendment.
made and seconded that we include all, that we adopt with the amendment that we include all names or the flexibility of all names.
But why can't the city council create days? I mean, I think, actually, I'll file that under a separate order.
Joe, the amendment I think that Linda and I were talking about is the city councilor's name, the president's name, and the rest of the city council who wants to be on it.
Yes.
If certain people don't want to be on it, that's fine.
Correct, that's a very good point.
That is
Yes.
what I meant.
Yes.
The supporting counselors to the resolution or proclamation.
Good idea.
Fair enough. Can I say one thing about the city clerk, though? I agree with Jim and Kevin, but I think the city clerk, the intent of it is, the city clerk is keeper of records and a notary republic. It's the seal of the city clerk authenticates the proclamation itself. If you ever notice these things from the State House, they have like a gold seal,
Seal.
somewhere. That's to authenticize that. Someone just didn't grab a proclamation and run out and say, here, this is from the city council.
Yeah.
It actually got voted on.
The president of the city council. So all the ones I just named, the seal is from the city council.
The seal is, yeah, that's fine, as long as there's a seal.
Yeah, but, you know, the thing is, I don't care who, it could be my mother next to the city clerk. I'm not taking anything away from her. I'm saying we're a city council body. Let's cherish the people that we're doing as a city council. I mean, I don't care whose names you're on it, but I just think it should go yours.
Yeah, give me a seal. We'll spit those out.
Any further
They're all,
discussion?
well, I know who the first 15 days of Holyoke are going to. You're all getting a day. All your birthdays, everybody.
If there's no further discussion, the motion is to adopt as amended, the amendment being that it be the president, the author who introduced the order, and the members who are in favor of it are allowed to sign if they so choose. In a day.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Final order of the night, introduced by Councilor Bartley, item number 8.
Make a motion to remove that from the table.
This is an order
Second.
to amend the rule number 31 to allow a member present during a subcommittee hearing to sit in the meeting for a quorum requirement to be met. And the motion has been made and seconded to receive and refer from the committee. Just note that also at the time, this goes back to 2015, Councilor Shatnoff and Councilor Bacon also signed off on this order. Councilor Jordan.
Okay, so Rule 31 currently, right now, let me back up, let me give you the history of Rule 31. 31 was 5 members, they're on the committee, end of story, nobody votes other than those 5. 2 show up, have a good night, end of meeting. Then, about 15 years ago, we made an amendment to Rule 31 that says the president of the council can sit into meetings if there's a quorum issue, right? That actually came after some discussion, because you become like a wild card committee member, because technically, on any of these, the council president can now sit on any committee to make a majority of the committee. This one presents, I'm not sure if this was intended by the makers, but, okay, we have 4 people, 2 show up. Says any of you can now sit on the committee. Which of the 4 of you is going to sit? I don't like this order, with all due respect. I understand the intent, but once, that could change the outcome of a committee meeting, and that could really be havoc that, so-and-so and so-and-so are out of town, so maybe I'm not around, right? And, hey, Billy, come down to the finance meeting because we're trying to get this out of committee and there's only 2 of us here. You show up, if you're the only one here, we'll vote out XYZ out of committee. I'm not a big fan of that idea, or ordinance, or what have you for an issue. It's pretty much, it's like, why aren't 3 of the 5, I think there's the bigger question, right, of why aren't the 3 of the 5 showing up at the meeting? Let's address that first. And then if that doesn't happen, then the president, if it's really something major, I've gotten calls from time to time. Joe used to get calls from time to time. Hey, is there any way you're in the neighborhood, you're around town, could you get down here so we could have this meeting? And there really should be a good reason why 3 of the 5 committee members aren't there, especially considering this really doesn't happen as much anymore, but there was a time when the chairs weren't always consulting the membership as to when they're having the meetings, right? If a chair is really hustling, they're already talking to the membership in advance that says, hey, can you, like Joe, he contacted us, can you make it down here Monday night? Blah, 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 are you gonna be able to be here? And then you take it from there. But some chairs were like, this is the meeting, and that's all there is to it, and blah, 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 and you be here, and then they ran into sometimes quorum problems. This anybody that happens to be in the room rule, I'm not a fan of that, me personally. I think, and then how do you pick when there's 2 in the room? Do you wait till one goes to the bathroom, and then the other one is the guy that gets in? I don't know. I don't know how you would enforce that.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you. You reminded me that I was one of the co-sponsors of that order because I didn't remember that I was. And I was just sitting here trying to think what the context was of it. And my general recollection, because it's not specific, is that there must have been quorum problems on the committee. And it came out as a result of that. Because I have sort of a vague memory of a few meetings where we were short and there was a certain level of frustration. They were unanticipated absences. Having gained some experience since this number of months has passed, I would withdraw my name as being a co-sponsor on that order. I think there are important reasons why committee structure is as it is, and there's also an important reason why the president of the council appoints the committees. And I think this opening up of the doors is fraught with political gamesmanship that I don't think we really want to do as an unintended consequence. And I think that's what it would be, because I think the goal is to be able to do business. But I do think there are any number of unintended consequences that could arise from this. And I agree, as chair of a committee, it is my job to make sure my committee can meet when I'm calling a meeting, at least 3 of them. So I'm in agreement on that.
Councilor Lopez.
Joe, the only way I would support something like this is we have to be clear from the beginning. Let's say, for example, the president of the city council, let's say, I'm going to name 5 committee members, but I'm going to put a backup person, and it will be from the beginning, from the get-go. And that's the only way that I will
That's
support anything like
interesting.
that. But I mean, other than that, I would not even bother. But I mean, this president will have to name them at the beginning, from the beginning, and then probably will.
associate member.
Yes, yeah.
But
And
that's
it
not
will be
even on the
public, it will
table.
be part of the legal notices when you do a special permit. That's all the names, and the whole committee will be, it will be public. It will not be hidden under this table or anything like that. I don't go for anything like that. That's my only suggestion.
Councilor Leahy.
Is it really that broken? I mean, how many
No,
times do we
no,
have?
it's
No,
This term, I don't think it's happened.
I don't think it is either. I guess
Once.
whoever, I don't know who the author is, I guess it. I mean, I understand what this person's saying. Because a lot of times you have a room full of people in here, you certainly don't want these people to go away without hearing their information. I don't think it's been that broken, so, I'm not gonna.
I could offer a couple of thoughts. I think everybody makes good points, and I don't think it's that broken either, as Councilor Leahy said, a good way to point it out. We did have a couple meetings, I think it was last year or maybe 2 years ago, that did fail to meet because of a quorum. And I think times have changed a little bit in terms of subcommittee meetings. But I want to bring it back a long time ago, when I first got on, and even before Councilor Lopez and Councilor Jordan on the city council, there were 29 subcommittees of the city council. 29.
wow.
So you do the math, everybody chaired something.
Was it 3 people?
3 people on a committee, My first chairmanship was the library committee. There was never one order put in the library committee, so that library committee never met. But Mike Mannix was the president, and the city council, actually under Mike Mannix, went to the 5 standing committees, growing to 5. At first, everybody said it's not going to work, but 5 members is a third of the city council. And the standing committees, you know, we painfully sometimes, you know, decide what goes to what committee. The ordinance committee became the workhorse. That's why DGR now helps out, you know, with the bulk of work, you know, to make sure the ordinance committee can get their important job done. DGR can take some. This committee was designed originally not standing. As Kevin pointed out at the last meeting, it became standing because charter and rules are important. But why should the ordinance committee do charters and rules? Let someone else do it, even though it's important. So that makes sense. We had a discussion tonight about the Joint Committee on Education. Very important. Just caution is, if we go to too many standing committees, we get back to that problem of, you know, the importance of being on a committee and showing up becomes harder. The scheduling of a committee meeting becomes harder. But I think we got a good grip on the 6 or 7 committees we're going to have. And I think Kevin's right. I think we got to be careful about, you know, the president all the time, anytime. But, you know, whether there's an associate or I know we don't have a vice president. I don't think we should have a vice president. But, you know, I'm not sure, you know, the senior member or, you know, I don't mean that because of age or longevity, but we got to be careful.
No, I agree with everything Joe just said. The other thing that we have to be cognizant of, seriously, is if we now go to 7, say we do the joint committee, 7 standing committees now, right? In another year, we're going to have 13 members. And I can tell you, as one of the things that is a task for me every 2 years is doling out these committee assignments and being fair and having balance and making sure you've got new people with older people, you know, and I don't say older,
making
but I
everybody
mean
happy.
senior people and actually having people that want to be on a committee. Because there's nothing worse. The worst thing that'll hurt your attendance right off the top is you put a counselor on a committee he or she does not want to even be on. That'll kill your attendance because they're dragging themselves to go to that committee. And then, you know, and if you overwhelm, and then you've got people, right, they say yes to everything, right? God love those people, but they allow themselves to be overwhelmed, and now they're serving on 3 and 4 committees. You don't want that either, because they'll burn out. So the council's going to have some decisions to make, and, you know, just to be cognizant of attendance in another year, because 2 less people is going to be that much more. And some of these chairmanships, you know, like a Todd or a Linda or even DGNR is really tackling more and more. You know, some of these counselors are really taking on big, big responsibilities with these big chairmanships.
Any further discussion?
What to do with it?
I make a motion to be given, either complied with or leave to withdraw.
How about leave to withdraw, and we'll see what the 2 remaining, well, the 1 remaining maker of the order is in agreement with the discussion. I did not have contact with Councilor Bartley. I apologize to him.
I'll catch up
I know
with
this has
them.
been in here for a while, and we're just kind of playing cleanup, so we'll certainly have a discussion with them before Tuesday.
So I make a motion to be given leave to withdraw.
Second.
Motion made second to give leave to withdraw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Before the
Oh.
ultimate motion, just wanted to point out that we did receive an order filed by Councilor Sullivan that the Sewer Commission and Water Department be merged. I think,
Is that the only other item left in the jacket?
well, 2 points.
I
One
wanted to
is,
ask for a list of all orders.
Oh,
'cause
there's
I
a
thought there
lot
was
more.
I thought there was like 1 million orders in this folder.
this is not on the agenda this evening because I think this
See you,
itself.
Howie. Take care,
This
Mr.
itself could take up a chunk of a meeting night itself.
Right.
And the second point, to Kevin's point, is I have a couple of other orders that were very confusing and very old, and members who are no longer members of the council. And if anyone will reach out, because this was duplicated by our administrative assistant by going back and just, you know, coming out of the, whatever was on file, whatever was, you know, sent into committee, and whatever he got from the city clerk that was sent into committee. And he went back about 4 years, 3 years. So if anyone knows of any orders, let me know, we'll find them. I will contact, I kid around about Gordon. I will contact Gordon because he worked very hard on a lot of this stuff. He just did a lot of it at home and forgot to bring it back to us.
Right.
But I will get in touch with him because he's promised me he'd get together, and we will find that. But if anyone knows of anything, there are,
Could you have Ryan or somebody make us a list of what's in the hopper? And then just as a committee, maybe we could discuss with you about what to put on a future agenda?
Yes.
You know, start chipping away. Maybe there's 20 items that are all going to be so old that they're out of date.
Find 'em.
And just
Mr.
do a
Chairman?
housekeeping, put them at the end, and then we tackle 5 or 6 of the real ones.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I just wanted to bring up, because you're talking about this point, I went on the city website and it has an old school Excel sheet that's updated to December 31st, 2015. So in there's Council Soto's orders, tons from Councilor Alexander, former Councilor Alexander. So that's what I was using, and it has from 2012 all the way up to 2015. And I know I have some that are pending as well, but it's on the city website, the tracking, jacket sheet, it's on the city website. Hasn't been updated since 2015, but it's on there.
Right.
I was going to say, is it good for 2016? Okay, good idea, though. I'll look. I suggest that we're going to meet the first or second week of December, not set the date tonight so I can get Counselor McGee and Counselor Lisi's good dates, but I think after Thanksgiving, first or second week of December.
That sounds good.
All right, that famous motion.
Motion
Yeah.
to adjourn.
Yes, Counselor Leahy.
Be the semi-annual meeting.
You better run.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
On a motion to adjourn, made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.
Very good.